Pat and your family, a little background history of my immediate family, and later on dwell upon my personal life from the time that I was born up to date. My father's name was Calvin Leehouse, and he married my mother, whose maiden name was Lori. Her name is now Molly Helena House, and they grew up in Edina, Missouri, uh, and they moved from Edina, Missouri to Boise, Idaho in about 1903. They had three children upon their arriving in Boise. That was Carmelita, Merle, and Tony. Ed was born in Boise. The rest of the kids were born in Meridian, Idaho. Olin J. and Catherine and C.L. Doc and Irene and Laverne were all born in Meridian. The old home place in Meridian was about a mile and a quarter north, 1 mile east, and 1/4 north. Now that was the area which we call that now is known as McMillan Road and Ustick Road, and of course 1/4 mile north of that. Our old house still stands in that area. However, there's other houses built in the near vicinity, but our house is located on the west side of the road, just 1/4 mile north of what is now known as McMillan and Ustick Road. In 1917, the folks decided that they had to acquire more farming ground in order to keep all the youngsters good and busy. So in 1917, Dad uh, bought an additional ground at Star, Idaho, which consists of about 80 acres. So we kids could have more work to do. And that's one thing that the folks made it the point to keep us kids busy, I guess to keep us out of mischief. I don't know what else. But I can remember hiking to school for 3 miles, what is known as Central Park School, which is about 3 miles west of Star. And that's where I got my remainder of my grade school, which was a portion of the third grade on through the eighth grade. Now the old schoolhouse, the Central Park, is still located at the same place, which is now turned into uh, uh, an antique building where they sell antiques. I'll get it straight here pretty soon. And so therefore, I then went to high school at Star, in which I graduated to a fashion, and I completed my college year at good old BJC. The first half, and the best subject that I had at the time that I was in school was baseball, football, and basketball. Other than that, my education, I can't brag a whole lot about it. Dad died on August the 17th in 1948. Mother died on October in 1954. Ole, which is better known as Bill to many, died of cancer on February the 20th in 1962. Catherine passed away also later on May the 4th in 1966. Uh, each of them died with the result of cancer, and the cancer was located in both of them in the colon area. Dad and Mother and Olin were buried in Boise in the Morse Hill Cemetery, along with my grandfather, Peter Lloyd. That was my mother's father. Catherine was buried in Weiser. So far, the rest of the family is in good shape. I'll take this opportunity to reminisce a bit about the workload in which all of us kids had to do at home. For example, one, getting back to our school years in grade school and high school, our transportation back and forth to school, which consists of about 3 miles, was either horseback or by the horse and buggy, or we could walk. We had our choice. But majority of the times we did walk and hike to school, and of course that was morning and evenings. Those days they didn't know what a school bus was, and on top of that, after returning home at night, I can remember from the third grade on, I had 3 cows to milk, along with my brothers who milked the remaining herd, which we usually milked around about 15 head of cows. And of course then, in those years, is about the only income that you had coming in during the winter months was the cream check. And of course, the chickens that laid the eggs, of course, those eggs, a lot of them went to market and trade them for groceries. And anyway, times wasn't so good then. Nobody in those years to speak of had any money to speak of at all. So it was kind of touch and go all the time. We kids always had warm clothes. We always had good meals. And of course, living on a farm, we had access to our beef and our pork, and of course, all grown commodities that we had. But in those days, they didn't have refrigerators to keep foods like they do today, and the mode of living was altogether different in those times. I look back to think about how we survived on the type of unrefrigerated foods that we ate. Why, it seems as though we made it. But we did have a cellar in which kept milk and various type foods, kept them preserved for quite some time, so it wasn't like leaving them out in what you might call a warm room. Well, anyway, so much for that. And if I might ad-lib of just a little bit more in regard to my particular part of life. Of course, as I told you, I was born in Meridian and moved to Star in 17, and of course schooled in that area until I went to good old BJC for a while. I then decided that first I might say that I did have an opportunity to go to college at Santa Clara College, which is right near your area. One of our wealthy businessmen wanted to send me there to school so I could play football for Santa Clara. But at the time that took place, I had a job driving stage for the Union Pacific, which is now sold to Greyhound. And so I drove stage from Boise to Pendleton and also from Boise to Pocatello. So, and I've had various routes throughout this general area. So I spent about 3 to 4 years driving bus, and I finally left the company, and I went to, I had various jobs thereafter, and then I finally was married, and I sold automobiles for a while, and later on went to work for state police in 1937. I was stationed here in Boise for a short period of time. I have to laugh to think that I was sent up along with about a half a dozen other officers to Wallace, Idaho, which is in the northern part of our state, which is there as known as the Sunshine Mine, in which if you read the papers here about the Sunshine Mine now closing in North Idaho. But the purpose of our Commissioner of Law Enforcement sending us up there was to quell a riot, because they were having riots up there in those days and dissatisfaction about union members and so on. When I say I had to laugh about the incident, when we 4 officers or 6 or 7 officers, whatever at that time, went up there, our commissioner went with us, and he put us in a hotel, and we stayed in that hotel the full week there and never went out to the mine. our commissioner went and negotiated with various mine members and finally got the problem all resolved. So therefore, we had no work to do at all. We sat up in our room and played cards and drank a little beer, I think, and so we had a kind of a ball out of it. Well, returning back to Boise from that, I was then transferred to Twin Falls, where I worked as a police officer with the state police in Twin Falls. And I held that job for about 2.5 years. And then Idaho at the time was very political. And the result was when when a Republican governor was elected, of course, the Democrats, which I happened to be one at the time, the Democrats would automatically all be out of work. They would be replaced with Republicans. That is what is known as the old spoil system. But as years went on, finally they went into a civil service program whereby an officer now is selected. His party affiliations means nothing. He can continue to work regardless of how many changes in the governor's office from Democrat to Republican. So anyway, I served in Twin Falls for 2.5 years, and then I returned to Boise and finally found work. I went to work for the police department in Boise, Idaho. I worked in the police department 2 years to the day, and at that time I had an opportunity to start a stage line to Anderson Dam, on which I made applications and received the permits from the Public Utility Commission. I started that stage line in the fall of 41, and I worked that out to its final completion in 10 years thereafter, 1950. Why, then the dam was completed, and therefore no longer service was needed in the area. I contacted polio in the tail end of my Anderson Dam years in 1949, and I, of course, become unable to work due to the fact the result of polio, where it completely took my legs completely out from under me. I finally survived that after spending a few months in the convalescent home with good care and physical therapy. Why, I was able to regain some of my strength back in my legs, and therefore I was able to continue on working at a limited scale. I started a used car lot right near our home, and I sold cars for, near a couple of years, I guess. And at that time, I was asked to run for sheriff for Ada County, but felt that there hadn't been a Democrat in any law or any office in county government for over 25 years. So I felt the Democrat would not have any chance of winning an election there. However, the good Democratic Party says we're going to put your name on the ballot anyway, and we want you to run. And they kept urging me to do so, and I still declined the offer and said, go ahead and put it on if you want to, because I'm not going to accept it. If I have to go before the general election and fight it out, I'm just not going to do it. Well, anyway, they did that very thing. They put my name on the roster, and I naturally had no competition to speak of in the primaries, and the result come up with the primary election. Well, I thought nothing of it because I didn't think I'd pursue that course and turned it down. But I commenced to get a lot of Republican support that would come and contact me and want me to pursue that office, and would certainly back me up and give me all the support they possibly could. Well, naturally, to be elected in Ada County, that's what had to happen. But I finally got weak and accepted the challenge, and therefore was elected in the fall of '51. I then took office in January of '52, and And I held that position and was reelected the second time. And then finally, before my term expired, I was offered a job with the Intermountain Gas Company as public relations man. And it was so attractive, they offered to pay me more than double the salary I was receiving as sheriff of Ada County. And I couldn't turn the offer down. So therefore, I resigned in September of '56 and accepted employment with the Intermountain Gas Company, which I remained there for 11 years. And I enjoyed my work. It was real fascinating, and I gained a lot of experience through that particular period of work. One thing that happened to me that I enjoyed so much, and I thought it was something that I wouldn't care about, but I was almost forced to do, as the company requested that I take a Carnegie course along with many other members that was heading up various departments of the Intermountain Gas Company. So therefore, when they asked me to accept that particular type of schooling, I had no other choice but to accept it if I wanted to remain to be an employee of the gas company. So therefore I did, and I first took a sales course, which I enjoyed very much. I didn't realize what the Carnegie course really meant until I got into it, and I found it very gratifying and very educational and very helpful. I can't stress Carnegie too much. After that course is completed, why, there's another course, what they call the leadership course for executive people, and I was asked again by the gas company to go ahead and go to that particular school along with a few other employees. I also taken that course, and all I have to say, it was so outstanding that I shall never forget it, and I'm a real ardent booster of Carnegie. The Carnegie courses is something that's real fine for anyone who has any thought of any shyness or methods of salesmanship and how it should be done, and how to make public speaking and put yourself at ease and really enjoy it. I was real surprised to find that other business executives in town, of whom I have known over a period of years, that I thought they were real well established, and they were in their business. But I didn't realize that they had a weakness, that they couldn't express themselves like they thought they ought to be able to. So therefore, they've taken that Carnegie course for one reason: to better be able to communicate with people, speak before people, and carry on a real good communication with anyone that they wish to do so with. Well, I had to stop for a moment to kind of get my thoughts together. In August or September in 1967, I was asked by our governor then, Don Samuelson, to serve on the Board of Corrections at the Idaho State Penitentiary. I gave it considerable thought of what advantage it would be to me to accept such a position, and finally thought the monetary gain was had a little more to offer than I thought perhaps that I had remaining left at the Intermountain Gas Company. So therefore I accepted that challenge and went to work for the state of Idaho in the capacity as chairman of the board of the Idaho State Penitentiary. I served on that for about 2 years, and shortly thereafter the legislature passed a law changing the Board of Corrections to a part-time board, and then hiring a warden to carry on the duties of the penitentiary. Well, being a member of the board and only a part-time employment, it wasn't very attractive to me. Well, I then, the governor wanted to transfer me then to what is known as the LEAA, or the Law Enforcement Planning Commission, in which I went to work there and served for about a year, and was not too happy with of what was taking place there, and therefore I decided in 1969 that I would resign and come home and spend the rest of my time working here on the ranch and see if I couldn't go on a retirement, semi-retirement program. Well, we then had cattle, and Leona had been doing quite a lot of my work, like changing the water at the noon hour whenever we would need on the fields. And she was carrying on duties that no woman should have to do. So I felt it's better off that I come home and call it quits. Well, in 1974, why we decided, or Leona decided, to phase the ranch out, in which we did, and so therefore we're down to approximately 5 acres now, and of course my work is not too strenuous. But anyway, so much for that part of it. After a short breather, I might continue on telling you the work that I have now with the state of Idaho. I do serve on the Judicial Council, which was created by the legislature in 1967. I serve as a layman in behalf of the program. To give you just a little bit of background about the Judicial Council's duties, I think they have 5 specific things that they have to do. Number one, conduct studies for improvement of administration of justice. 2, to make reports to the Supreme Court and the legislatures at different intervals and within every 2 years. 3rd, submit to the governor names of not less than 2, no more than 4 qualified persons for each vacancy in the office of Justice of the Supreme Court or the district judges, of whom shall be appointed by the governor. 4, recommend the removal and discipline and retirement of judicial officers, including members of the industrial board. 5, perform such other duties that might be assigned by law. Now, the Judicial Council is made up by 7 members, 3 whom are attorneys, 1 who shall be a district judge and be appointed by the Board of Commissioners of the state of Idaho, and 1 from the bar consent to the with consent of the Senate. 3 non-attorney members shall be appointed by the governor with the consent of the Senate. The terms of office for the appointment members of the Judicial Council shall be 6 years. The appointment shall be made with due consideration for the area representation, and not more than 3 of the appointed members shall be from 1 political party. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court shall be the 7th member and chairman of the Judicial Council. Now, our duties are quite broad due to the fact that we have examination of any problems with the district court or the Supreme Court that may be drawn to the council's attention in behalf of bringing the Judicial Council, or the judiciary, I should say, to some unfortunate action that would make disrepute to the judiciary. So therefore, we get quite a number of complaints throughout the state of Idaho about some district judge in some area that's not conducting his business as he should. He hasn't been fair in his determination of a court case, and so therefore we get a lot of complaints. The majority of the complaints are not really have any basis for complaints due to the fact that just because somebody loses a court case, he blames the judge for making the wrong decision, but very seldom that's the case. But anyway, if, for an example, if a judge was an alcoholic or if he was mentally incompetent, continued to perform his duties as a district judge or a Supreme Court judge, it is the duty of the council to review that particular problem and make recommendation to the Supreme Court for the possible removing that judge from office. And this has happened a few times, 10.5 years that I've served on this council, and therefore it's quite interesting. It gives us a good insight about what the Supreme Court judges and district judges are doing in the state of Idaho regard to their workload and how they're conducting their problems within the courts, and kind of see that it's functioned. It's the first time in 1967 when the council was created. It's the first time in the history of the state where the district judge had to conduct himself in such a manner that that he could be removed from office by the council, and prior to that time, why, if he got his work done or however he conducted himself, it didn't make any difference. But so therefore, we feel that the council has upgraded the district judges. We're now, on any new appointment that we make, we are qualifying them. We question them. We learn their background, their schooling, and we pick up whatever information we can about the individual and learn about his habits and all. And we want to qualify him to be sure that we send a qualified person to the governor for his consideration of appointment. So it has been very good, and it's been something that I've enjoyed. It kind of brings me back to law enforcement again, and I find it very interesting. And my term will be due up, I think, in a couple of years, and I'm wondering whether I want to continue to serve another 6 or not. But I think probably my health, and if everything works good, I might consider going on for a while. But anyway, be as it may, it's been a job that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and it packs quite a lot of authority when it comes to keeping our courts in line, and that's of course the purpose of the Judicial Council. I might talk about law enforcement. In fact, it seemed to me when I give you a brief background of my life and my history prior on this tape, it seemed like that I went through it pretty fast and not give you all in detail. And of course, there's many things that I don't remember at the time of this recording, but I'll reminisce a little bit and give you a little more information about law enforcement, which was something that was quite interesting to me. As I mentioned, I had been with the state police, also with the city police, and also on the Board of Corrections, and so therefore I've had a pretty good background of law enforcement. But I was lucky, while I was with the state police in about 1938, we had the opportunity here in Idaho to bring the instructors from the FBI Academy in Washington, D.C., to Idaho for a 3-week schooling. And of course, it consists of technology and methods of how to detect crime, like, for an example, fingerprint, know how to decipher a fingerprint and read it and come to a final conclusion that it can be John Doe's fingerprint, or it is not John Doe's fingerprint, whatever the case may be. Handwriting is an interesting subject whereby you learn about handwriting. You can just almost tell when you look at some handwriting. You want to make a comparison. If you compare it with an individual's handwriting, you just about know that yes, he wrote that or he did not. Certain characteristics about handwriting, it's real fascinating when you learn it. You can just pretty well tell that yes it is or no it isn't. So all these things are real uh, interesting. And of course, I think the thing that they taught us more about evidence, what to look for in evidence at a scene of a crime. What is evidence? What would a court accept in your testimony in regard to any crime that was committed? You have to know what evidence is, and after you know what it is and you gather that evidence, you've got to learn how to present it in court. If it's not presented in court properly, therefore the judge can ask it to be not admitted in the court records. So it's really important that you learn what is evidence, how to prepare it, and preserve it, and ready to submit it in a court case. So all these things that we learned, and of course, learn self-protection, how to use firearms, and the best message is how to protect yourself under various circumstances and to give yourself the best advantage, although you're always at a disadvantage, a law enforcement man is always at a disadvantage, but there is ways that you can protect yourself to a good advantage rather than just go right out and make yourself a live target. And it's interesting to know how easy it is to disarm somebody who is holding a revolver on you. It isn't always an ironclad case, but you can always, there is an advantage. You can disarm somebody holding the gun on you very quickly and very unexpectedly. You do it so quick that it is done before the person who is holding the firearm on you knows what's going on. And it's no trick at all if you do it the right way. We can sure take that gun away from him. And so all these techniques that we learned in that law enforcement school, and of course I think we were exceptionally fortunate to be able to have such instructors that taught and instructed all new FBI agents that came to Washington, D.C. to join the FBI. So we consider ourselves, those of us who had that opportunity to attend this school in Boise, why we felt that we were getting about as good if we'd have went to Washington, D.C. to get it. So that enhanced my knowledge, and it made me a better law enforcement man due to the fact that I did learn some tricks of the trade, and I found it very helpful. I think my experience with the sheriff's office is probably one of the most gratifying things. There's lots of things that happen. There was a little touch and go, and I mean by that, maybe I can express myself like your father would, like Bob would, say times when it could become a little hairy. Well, I can remember one time that we were setting on a job out at a person's house in Boise. He turned the house over to us. He went on his way back to his store, and at that time we had information that known burglars to us was going to go in and burglarize his place. So about three officers, excuse me, I would have to cough right then. Three other officers and myself participated in that stakeout. We call that a stakeout. So we planted ourselves in the house, and we put ourselves in various areas, and that was what we call our station. And this is another thing that we learned under the Federal Bureau of Investigation and in the schools in which I was just now mentioning prior to this time, that they told us how to be sure to stake ourselves out so we'd never have any crossfire if there had to be any gunfire at all. So therefore, it was my duty as sheriff to place these fellows in an area in which they could only have one area to shoot if that ever become necessary. And he could not shoot any other way because he might shoot into one of his own officers. So therefore, he had specific instructions that this is the only area that he could shoot if he had to fire. If there was somebody else in another area, could take care of the area and shoot across an area where he would not hit anyone else. Well, in this stakeout, I could remember very definite that this this fellow or two fellows come in, and we watched them come in, and we knew that they were going to be the ones that come in to break in and burglarize the house. So we went to our stations and waited. And the first thing I know, some had a loud knock on the front door, and then a voice hollered out loud, "Is there anybody home?" And of course, none of us answered. And I can remember my stakeout was that I placed myself down a hallway where the bathroom was at the end of this hallway, and the two bedrooms were just to the right, one to the right and one to the left, with the bathroom in the middle. And I went to my post there, and I left my door about half ajar in each of the bedroom and the bathroom and so on. And of course we waited then to see where the boys were going to come in at. And sure enough, they came in one of my bedrooms where I was guarding. I then, when I heard the window break and the screen being tore off and the window break, I stepped back in the bathroom, and I did bump the bathroom door, and it in turn bumped the toilet. And I thought, oh my golly, I spooked them. But the end result, evidently, they didn't hear it, and I was afraid to back up anymore in the bathroom due to the fact that I might bump that door again. So I stood there on the threshold, and I waited. And here come a man through with his flashlight half covered up, throwing the little beam right on the floor. And I could have reached out and touched him when he went by, but I didn't do anything at the time. I just stood there and let him go. He walked on away from me down the hallway. And I was waiting for maybe, I didn't know how many more was going to come in behind him. So therefore I just held my ground and stayed there and made no noise or nothing. And I determined that there was nobody coming in. He was the only lone one that broke in and come in. So what he did, he went down through the front room and into the kitchen and unlocked the back door to let his buddy in from the other end of the house. He then returned and coming up the hallway right towards me, and I knew that he would spot me if he continued to come. So I just reached up and flipped the light on, and of course placed him under arrest. Made him stand up to the wall. We frisked him out, and we also handcuffed him. And in the meantime, the other man got spooked, run out the back door, which he just entered prior to that time, and he started running down the road. Well, we had one of the officers, excuse me, we had one of the officers who was stationed outside of the building, and he saw what was happening, so he demanded that the man stop, that he was under arrest with police officers, and so he continued to run. And this officer who was out there, had what was known as Thompson submachine gun, and he started firing at him, and all he was trying to do was leg him, and he was doing an excellent job because the fence was made of wood, and therefore the bullets was going through the wood fence and shooting where he was shooting. You could tell that all his shots would have been leg shots if they would have hit, but unfortunately he was unable to lay him. And this man run out to the road and down the road, and basically made the turn to get on the road. Why, this police officer made a burst of fire, and he hit this man right. He had a glove on, this fellow did, with a big long screwdriver, and that bullet entered the back of his hand, went on through and hit the screwdriver and broke the shaft off from the handle. Well, the man still wouldn't stop. He kept running and running, and this officer went out to the road and looked down the road, and he got a glimpse of him in the dark. So he fired again, and this time he hit him in the rump. And of course that knocked him down, and as he was falling with the rapid fire of a Thompson submachine gun, when he was falling forward, one of the bullets went in his his back, and as he fell, why it come out through his heart. So it was a sad deal. The man lost his life, but this was his third time he would have made the penitentiary if he had lived. So therefore, he was an undesirable man. So anyway, so much for that. So just give you a little idea of what law enforcement's all about, and I found that law enforcement has its good points, and you gain, I guess, if you do your job well, you do gain respect in your community, and I think if you treat everybody like you want to be treated, you'll not have any trouble. And I found, too, over the period of years that it isn't difficult to be honest. And when you're honest with people, you gain a lot of respect, and what more have you got in life to ask for if you're respected in the community? And I like to believe, I might be sticking my chest out a little, but I like to believe that I have that respect. And it's very gratifying to know that if you just be honest with yourself and others, it certainly pays off in the long run. Well, Bob, that's just about the story of my life. I can't think of anything else that's very important that you might enjoy listening to, but maybe we can sit down and talk about more things, and you might have some questions later on. If you do, I'll do my best to answer them. But at this point, I'm going to call this tape off. I think the hour is just about over, and so we'll just see you later. Oh, yes, I might add, Bob, if you want to knock, there's a pin in this tape, but I'm not just sure where it's at. Or I think I know, but I'm not sure of it. But if you knock that pin out, this tape can never be erased, and it might be well to find out how you do it so the kids wouldn't make a mistake and erase it if you want to keep it for a period of time. Oh, yes, you always think of some little thing that you want to add, and what I want to do is date this tape. I made this tape on Thursday, the 4th day of February, 1982. So that'll give you an idea when it was taped, and that's all for that.